In the glittering steel and glass heart of modern Shanghai, a city that breathes ambition and exhales neon, lived a man named Liu Liang. He was an architect, a sculptor of skylines, a man whose success was as towering and undeniable as the buildings he designed. He was married to a woman named Maya, who was, by all accounts, as radiant and full of life as the city itself. They lived in a luxurious, minimalist apartment high above the fray, a glass cage with a breathtaking view of the urban sprawl. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple, a portrait of modern success and happiness. But as with all perfect portraits, the truth lay not in the glossy surface, but in the subtle, darkening cracks that spiderwebbed just beneath. Leo was an ambitious man. He had clawed his way to the top of a ruthless profession, and he wore his success like a bespoke suit of armor. He was 3 years older than Maya, and when they married, he had promised her a stable, beautiful, fulfilling life. He had delivered on the stable and beautiful part. The fulfillment, however, had gotten lost somewhere along the way. His success demanded a steep price. Long hours at the office bled into sleepless nights. Frequent business trips to Beijing and Shenzhen became the norm. He was a ghost in their pristine, white-walled home, a fleeting presence who returned exhausted, seeking only silence and solitude. The easy conversation that had once flowed between them dwindled to a trickle of perfunctory questions and monosyllabic answers. He was emotionally absent, a loving husband in name only, and underneath his polished, successful exterior, Leo harbored a deep, festering insecurity. It stemmed from a near-catastrophic failure early in his career. A pedestrian bridge he had designed, a soaring, elegant structure of steel and cable, had collapsed during a stress test, a victim of a minor miscalculation that had almost ruined him. The public humiliation, the whispers of incompetence, had scarred him in a way no one could see. He had rebuilt his career, brick by painful brick, but the fear of failure, the terror of being seen as a fraud, was a constant, gnawing companion. This insecurity extended to other, more intimate parts of his life, a quiet, unspoken anxiety about his own masculinity, his performance as a man, a husband, a lover. An anxiety his wife would one day, with devastating consequences, make public. Maya was 25 when she married Leo. A recent communications graduate from Fudan University, she was bright, vivacious, and full of dreams. She loved Leo sincerely, not for his money or his status, but for the quiet intensity she saw in his eyes. She had been happy at first to build a life with him, even though he was never a man for sweet words or grand romantic gestures. But as Leo's career skyrocketed, her own ambitions were quietly shelved. She gave up her job to become a full-time homemaker, the perfect, supportive wife to a titan of industry. Gradually, a profound, suffocating loneliness began to settle over her. Their luxurious apartment, with its panoramic views and designer furniture, started to feel less like a home and more like a beautifully appointed prison. She felt unheard, misunderstood, and increasingly unloved by her perpetually absent husband. To cope with the silence, she turned to the noise of social media. On Weibo, the Chinese equivalent of Twitter, she began to curate a second life, a life of melancholic, artfully composed photos of rain-streaked windows and solitary cups of tea. An existence defined by a beautiful, poetic sadness. A digital camera, a rare, almost offhand gift from Leo during their one and only vacation together, briefly rekindled a passion she had long forgotten. Photography became her escape, a way to frame her loneliness and make it beautiful, a way to speak when she had no one to talk to. It was on an online photography forum that the first fatal crack in their marriage appeared. She started sharing her work, her moody, atmospheric photos of the city, and it was there that a man using the romantic, evocative pseudonym Son of the Wind sent her a private message. He didn't just praise her photos with empty compliments. His comments were subtle, insightful. He saw what others didn't. He saw the sadness that lurked beneath the surface of her beautiful compositions, and he told her so. His words resonated with her so deeply it felt as if a stranger had reached across the digital void and touched her very soul. His name was Kenji Tanaka, or so he said. Through hours of late-night online conversations, he presented himself as a free-spirited Japanese-American businessman, a kindred spirit who truly understood her. He listened without judgment to her halting confessions about her unhappy marriage, her profound loneliness. He offered gentle advice and genuine, unwavering encouragement. He made her feel valued. He made her feel seen. He made her feel alive. These were feelings she had been starved of for years. He suggested they meet. Just for a coffee, he said. A simple photography exchange at a quiet, elegant cafe in the old French concession. Maya, though hesitant, found herself accepting. She was driven by a potent cocktail of curiosity and a desperate, aching longing for new emotions, for a disruption to the sterile monotony of her life. Kenji, in person, was even more charming than he was online. He was confident, well-dressed, and his eyes, unlike her husband's, were focused solely on her. He was an observant, masterful seducer. He complimented her dress, her smile, the way she held her camera. He made her feel not just appreciated, but desired. Their coffee dates bled into quiet dinners. Their relationship deepened inevitably, leading to physical intimacy in the anonymous luxury of boutique hotels. For Maya, these encounters were a revelation. They brought a storm of intense, overwhelming emotions, a physical and emotional release she had never experienced in her marriage. Kenji made her feel beautiful, passionate, alive. For Kenji, it was a conquest, but he was clever. He showered her with thoughtful, meaningful gifts, not expensive trinkets. A rare, out-of-print book of photography, a vintage lens for her camera, small things that further cemented her belief in his genuine care and understanding. And as their affair deepened, he began to insidiously, expertly sow seeds of negativity about her husband. He would subtly criticize Leo's inattentiveness, his emotional neglect. He would suggest with a tone of profound sadness that Maya deserved so much more, that she deserved a man who truly appreciated her, a man who saw her for the incredible woman she was. His manipulation was a slow-acting poison. Maya began to view her husband through a new negative lens. The resentment she had buried for years began to fester, to grow, while her emotional dependence on Kenji became absolute. Leo, despite his all-consuming career, was not a stupid man. He began to notice subtle, almost imperceptible changes in his wife. She was more cheerful. She started singing to herself as she moved around the apartment. She began to pay more attention to her appearance, wearing dresses he hadn't seen in years, and she became secretive, almost possessive, with her phone, angling it away from him whenever a message came in. The turning point, the moment his vague unease curdled into a cold, hard knot of suspicion, came late one night. Maya had fallen asleep on the sofa, her phone lying on the cushion beside her. It lit up with a new message. Leo glanced at it. The name on the screen was Son of the Wind. The message read, "Your photos from this afternoon were breathtaking. You capture the soul of the city. I can't wait for our weekend meeting." The words hit him like a physical blow. A weekend meeting? He confronted her the next morning. Maya was evasive, her explanations clumsy and unconvincing. He was just a friend from her photography group, she said. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to sprout, its ugly tendrils wrapping around his heart. His suspicion was further fueled by a casual, poison-tipped comment from a mutual friend who mentioned seeing Maya having lunch with an unfamiliar, handsome man. Leo's vague jealousy hardened into a cold, determined anger. He began to watch her. Maya, for her part, was living a life of quiet, suffocating torment. She was trapped in a double life, consumed by guilt and the constant gnawing fear of discovery. Kenji, her supposed savior, continued to push her, to nudge her towards what he called freedom. He spoke of the importance of living authentically, of escaping the gilded cage of her unhappy marriage. But Kenji had a secret of his own, a cunning, ruthless business agenda. He knew that Leo's firm was the lead contender for a massive city-defining architectural project. A project that a rival company, a company with whom Kenji was covertly collaborating, was also desperately trying to win. He began to subtly, cleverly suggest to Maya that any internal information she might have about Leo's project, any design details or bidding strategies, would be immensely beneficial to his own business ventures. He was using her. She was not his soulmate. She was a pawn in a high-stakes game of corporate espionage. And then came the final, fatal push. Kenji persuaded Maya that the only way to achieve her freedom, the only way to begin their new, happy life together, was to publicly disclose her affair. He convinced her that this was the only way to be truly free from the shackles of her marriage, free from secrecy and lies. He stressed the importance of making it public, so that Leo and the entire world would know that she no longer loved her husband. Unbeknownst to Maya, this was a cold, calculated move by Kenji. It was designed to utterly destroy Liu Liang's reputation, to ensure Maya's complete and total dependence on him, and most importantly, to allow him to distance himself cleanly from the inevitable, messy fallout. The final catalyst was a small, trivial argument, a petty disagreement about household chores. But it landed on the fertile ground of Leo's pre-existing stress and raging suspicions. He exploded, his voice dripping with a contempt that had been simmering for months. He called her useless, he called her a burden. He said he was tired of coming home to her long face and her sad, pathetic little hobbies. The words were a knife in Maya's already wounded heart. Deeply hurt, and with Kenji's insistent voice whispering in her ear, she made an impulsive, catastrophic decision. She would expose everything. She would burn her old life to the ground in the belief that a new, more beautiful one would rise from the ashes. She opened her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She wrote a long, detailed, emotionally charged post on her Weibo account. She recounted the loneliness of her marriage, her husband's cold indifference, and her newfound, all-consuming love with a man she knew only as Son of the Wind. She revealed her affair without reservation, sparing no intimate detail. She wanted the world to know that she had finally found love, even if that love was, by society's standards, wrong. She hit post. The post quickly went viral. It was shared, commented on, and debated by thousands. It attracted a storm of attention, a torrent of criticism, and a small, scattered chorus of sympathy. While Maya's phone began to explode with calls and messages from concerned, shocked friends, Kenji Tanaka, sitting in his own apartment across town, read her post. He had achieved his objective. Liu Liang would be ruined. With a small, cruel smirk, he coldly blocked Maya's number. Then he logged into the photography forum and deleted his Son of the Wind account, erasing every digital trace of his existence, every message, every promise. He left her to face the hurricane alone. Liu Liang discovered the post at 10 o'clock that night. He was in his office preparing for a crucial presentation. A colleague sent him the link with a simple, pitying message. "Leo, you need to see this." His initial shock, the feeling of the floor dropping out from under him, quickly morphed into an uncontrollable white-hot fury. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the public nature of it, the extreme, unbearable humiliation. He read the comments, mocking, pitying messages from colleagues, clients, and strangers. His carefully constructed image of a successful man with a perfect family, the armor he had worn for years, was shattered. Calls began to flood in. His boss, his parents, his associates, he felt like a clown, a laughingstock, his deepest personal failures laid bare for the world to see. His career, his reputation, everything he had worked for was on the verge of complete and utter collapse. But the final fatal trigger, the thing that pushed him over the edge from rage into a state of temporary insanity, was not just the affair itself. It was the specific, intimate details Maya had included in her post. With what he perceived as a calculated, malicious cruelty, she had exposed his two most painful, deeply buried secrets. She wrote about his past professional failure, the collapsed bridge that had almost ruined him, and she had implicitly, devastatingly contrasted his fumbling, insecure lovemaking with the passionate, transcendent experiences she had with her new lover. It was a public emasculation, an unforgivable, direct assault on his fragile male ego, his very sense of self-worth. Blinded by a rage so total it was like a physical illness, Leo rushed home. He stormed into the apartment. He found Maya in the bedroom, staring at her phone, her face illuminated by the screen. She looked up at him, and in her eyes, he saw not remorse, not fear, but what he perceived as defiance, a cool, challenging stare. That look, real or imagined, was the spark that ignited the last tattered shreds of his self-control. Perhaps she said something then. Perhaps a defiant statement about preferring death to living with a failure like him. No one will ever know. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, a red wave of violence washing over him, he turned and ran to the kitchen. He grabbed a small, sharp fruit knife from the magnetic strip on the wall. He returned to the bedroom, and he stabbed her, again and again. The scene was a chaotic, brutal explosion of violence, ending in a profound, shocking silence. Maya lay in a widening pool of her own blood. The neighbors, a young couple in the apartment below, had been alerted by the violent, percussive sounds from upstairs. They called security. The security guard, using a master key, found Maya's body. He found Liu Liang standing in a daze in the middle of the room, the bloody knife still clutched in his hand. The police were called. Liu was arrested without resistance, his face a blank mask of shock. The investigation was swift and thorough. The police traced the digital ghost of Son of the Wind through Maya's phone and computer. Despite Kenji's attempts to erase his tracks, clues from Maya's friends and photos found on her camera's memory card led them to him. Kenji Tanaka, a 35-year-old Japanese-American businessman with a reputation for being a ruthless operator. The families were devastated. Maya's parents, in a state of profound, inconsolable grief, demanded the most severe punishment possible for her killer. Liu's family, retired intellectuals, were crushed by the shame and the loss, forced to face the public's condemnation and the victims' families' wrath. The tragedy carved a deep, unbridgeable chasm between the two families, a rift of accusation and blame that would never heal. When interrogated, Kenji Tanaka initially denied any deep involvement. He claimed he was merely a casual photography acquaintance. But confronted with the irrefutable evidence of their intimate messages, their shared photos, their hotel transactions, he admitted to the affair. Crucially, however, he adamantly, vehemently denied inciting Maya to go public. He blamed her impulsiveness, her emotional instability, her own deep-seated marital issues. He painted himself as a victim, a kind, compassionate soul who had simply tried to offer solace to a troubled woman. And because there was no direct, provable link between his words and Liu's violent act, he managed to escape any direct criminal responsibility for the murder. His true character as an opportunistic, manipulative, and profoundly irresponsible individual was exposed, but he faced no legal punishment for the pivotal, destructive role he had played. He simply walked away. In custody, as the red haze of his rage slowly dissipated, Liu Liang was forced to confront the horrific reality of what he had done. Initially, he was bitter, self-pitying, blaming Maya for destroying his life. But gradually, in the long, silent hours in his cell, he began to recall their happier moments, the easy laughter of their early years, the way she used to look at him. He began to acknowledge his own emotional neglect, his selfishness, his role in the slow, painful death of their marriage. But this belated remorse, this flicker of self-awareness, could not undo his actions. The court found Liu Liang guilty of intentional murder. Considering the brutal nature of the crime and its severe consequences, he was sentenced to death. The maximum penalty, the tragic story of Liu Liang and Maya To, left behind a lasting, chilling reminder of loss, the terrible price of mistakes, and the profound fragility of human happiness and life itself. It was a stark warning about the destructive power of pride and the societal pressure to maintain a perfect facade. It was a tragedy born from the slow, creeping cancer of poor communication and emotional neglect within a marriage. It was a cautionary tale about the double-edged sword of social media, where an impulsive, thoughtless post in the virtual world can have devastating, bloody consequences in the real one. And it was a grim, horrifying reminder of the fragile, gossamer thin boundary between love and hatred, and between human reason and primal, violent instinct when emotions are pushed to their absolute breaking extreme. When violence is chosen as a solution, the cost is immeasurable, and the only thing left in its wake is the silence of the dead.